important. It's fine. All right, Christine Fushi. I'm an accessibility consultant. I've been in publishing for 22 years, started as a journalist. I went to McGraw-Hill Education as a project manager, and into content management systems and technology training, and then moved to an organization, Content Industries, Logic Trend Content Industries, where we were a software company providing programmatic solutions to publishers for creating EPUBs. And during that time, we started doing accessibility, and we remediated and certified their workflow, the Pearson workflow, and 1,700 EPUBs to comply with WCAG. So today we're talking about where policy meets practice, accessibility, education, and not healthcare, because I didn't get any real world experiences by the time that I did this session. So healthcare sort of knocked off. But we're going to talk about Title II and how it applies. If anybody wants to listen to this, I'm not going to be offended if you want to leave. Are you guys all, we're on board here? Okay, cool. So, we're going to talk about Title II and what it means. And we're going to talk about the W's, the who, what, where, why, when, and then the how of understanding and ensuring equal access. So, if this could be collaborative, you guys want to share any experiences that you have, what you do, how it could, even if it's not related to public municipalities or not in the Title II sector, then it's just to apply to your organization. I've recently started substitute teaching in the K through 12 school. Does anybody substitute teach? As a professional, it's demoralizing, but as a person in accessibility, it's very valuable. You really learn a lot of things about what they're using and the tools that they're using and what they're actually doing. I don't think this is going to be right. Sorry. So I have seen them use the iPads with the apps where you touch the screen for the words, and then they're using different kinds of sheets and stuff. So it's all very interesting, very valuable. But the district doesn't understand what Title II means. And I'm going to talk about that towards the end where I get some real world experience. So we're going to talk about the 5 W's. We're going to take policy to practice, the what and how of accessibility, and then the practice to policy, the how and why of implementing. And then again, our real world experiences here. So, Title II, the American Disabilities Act is a whole civil rights law prohibiting discrimination based on disability. So there's 5 of the titles: employment, state and local government, which is what we're doing, public accommodations, telecommunications, and miscellaneous provisions. I don't know what those are, but so Title II aims to level the playing field and ensure that people are with disabilities have equal opportunity to participate in services, programs, and activities. So not just in the school, not just in educational settings, but park district programs, baseball teams, what else? And then within fire department, your villages and your community departments, police, fire, things of that nature, and in the healthcare system. So individuals with disabilities shall not be excluded. So this is the why. They should not be excluded based or denied benefits of service programs or activities of a public entity or be subjected to discrimination. The public entities are held accountable to provide those reasonable modifications so that they are able to come in and be able to participate. You don't want to not be prepared. I was on the PTA, another thing I don't suggest anybody doing, and the parent-teacher organization. And since I had this accessibility background, I tried to bring into You know, we should probably assess our programs or our events for people that might have, you know, sensory issues or just, you know, can't do too many things that, you know, too many people. Let's try and figure some things out. And so we bought some headphones for accommodations, and we you know, we had a big block party, so we sort of set a little time aside ahead of time for people who may want to come and just do things on their own before everyone else came. So it's really just small things of modifying. I don't like to say improve because I don't think anybody's doing anything wrong. I think it's just we're just bettering ourselves for the future and to be more inclusive. So the why continued, we've got program accessibility versus physical accessibility. Program accessibility talks about existing facilities, public entities for program services and activities. Of course, some programs you want to think about the physical barriers. So like here, we're on floors 1, 2, and 3, but there's an elevator. Or if we were outside and it was too hot, we would come inside, things like that. You just want to think about different ways, but it's not the primary focus. The physical accessibility is the main focus for actual physical space. So it includes new construction alterations, making sure that existing facilities have wide enough doors or correct elevator spaces or accessible washrooms. So the where. So the public entities sort of have two roads. One is communication, and then one is their buildings and their facilities. So we're going to talk a lot about communications and what that really means for education, learning systems, modifications to testing, anything digital or written communication that gets sent out. We want to make sure it's modified. It's one thing, and being a substitute, and I've been a substitute in the resource room. They don't modify their worksheets, and some teachers don't know how to modify their worksheets, but the special education teachers too busy to modify the worksheets. So, and then ensuring buildings and facilities to individuals, ramps, accessible restrooms, like I just said, and a few other things. So who does it apply to? City and town councils, police and fire departments, park and recs, libraries, public transportation, courts and legal services, public schools, social service agencies, and permitting and licensing departments, I think like the DMV. However, it does not matter if you receive federal funding. Of course, nobody's receiving federal funding, but whatever, eventually. So, but I repeat, regardless of whether you receive federal funding, it is your responsibility to be accessible, especially, and then in the education, section 504 states that if you are under that, educational institutions are receiving federal funding. And that was really the point of this, was if you're receiving federal funding, which education and healthcare does through Medicare and Medicaid, that their services, communication, buildings need to be accessible. Otherwise, they won't receive federal funding. So our focus today, though, will be schools, I hope. I feel like I mix mashed, but I was worried that maybe I wasn't going to get all education people, so I thought I'd sort of mix it up. But for this purpose, it's mainly education. And so we'll just talk about how they can get there, what they can do, and then how to assess now. But I wanted to ask if anyone had any where you think modifications could occur. Maybe not necessarily in education, but in like your organization or your community or anything you're involved in. I have some. So some examples would be a public university providing extended time on exams for students with a learning disability, a community college offering sign language interpreters for a student who may be deaf or hard of hearing, a public school district ensuring its website is accessible to screen readers, high school making reasonable modifications in sports programs to allow a student with mobility impairment, and a state providing accessible housing for a student with disabilities. So there's a student in my school, she has Down syndrome, and they want to kick her out. So, and she's probably not the problem. She comes to school and she works hard, and all the kids love her. And so I was in her gym class and we were doing jump roping, and she obviously can't do that, but we modified it where we were able to put the rope on the floor and then we told her to jump over it, and she thought it was the best thing. She had a great time. So there's deadlines when. So public entities with 50,000 or more people must ensure that they are that their websites and their applications are accessible for WCAG by April 24th, 2026. So this is communications, digital communications. So websites, social media, the apps that they're using at school. Public entities under 49,999 have until April 26, 2027, and then special district governments have until April 2027 as well. WCAG, does anybody not know what WCAG is? Cool. All right, so when policy meets practice, making small reasonable modifications to policies, practices, and procedures. This is all, if you were here last year with Meryl Evans, she said progress over perfection. So making the reasonable modifications to help ensure that your programs, physical places are accessible is just one small step. And to comply with Title II, school districts must ensure that the individuals with disabilities are not excluded. So including assemblies or after-school activities, or at the school, they have a theater week. And again, this young girl was part of the theater week and she needed a one-on-one, and the school wasn't going to pay for that. So the parents had to stay. So other things, I guess, before I get into, okay, we'll go into this. I was gonna say, okay. So physical accessibility, removing architectural and structure barriers in the built environment. This ensures people with mobility impairments can enter, navigate, and use facilities and spaces, especially the schools. They have to make sure that their entryways are wide enough, their bathroom walls are wide enough, that their drinking fountains are accessible, their furniture is accessible, they have proper parking spaces outside, that there are no, the pathways are clear for everyone, so there's no blockages. Nobody's using, they should have telephones too, but who's got telephones anymore? What else do we have? And then outside of schools, we have some, courthouses have to comply, libraries, parks and recs. So, some, your curb cuts too are included in the physical accessibility of it, signage, parking spaces, restrooms, elevators. Program accessibility. So this is where, again, we talk about services, programs, and activities. Services are direct assistance, provisions, or benefits offered by a public entity. Programs, when a public entity is providing a specific goal to the public or an activity. Public entity does, whether it's a formal program or a less structured one. So I just went my little slides here. So outside of education, again, you've got your healthcare services, social services for welfare, public libraries, public safety agencies, employment agencies, job training programs, cultural programs, voting processes, grant applications. I don't know. I always go somewhere and I'm always like, is this going to work? My dad lived at the VA in Chicago, and every week he would get a pile of menus that he would have to circle his options for the next 7 days for 3 meals. For somebody who had terrible dexterity, bad. It's bad. Like, would it have been better if he had an iPad? Not for him, but they would bring in like a nurse to do it for him if he couldn't do it. So they provided an accommodation for him. So again, so this would just be like that, providing a sign language interpreter if you had someone who was deaf, making modifications, again, allowing service animals in, or giving extra time for tests, I think I mentioned earlier. Some assistive technologies. So my dad had a hard time projecting his voice, so they gave him a voice amplifier. So they get, that's another tool that they can provide. And then just large print or braille and digital formats for those who are visually impaired. So program accessibility, digital accessibility. So this is where I've really worked with PDF and EPUBs and other documents. So I recently spoke to a school district and I was telling them about Title II. And their response to me was, oh, we use Title II funding for professional development. I was like, so you don't know what Title II is? And she's like, well, no, we do. And I said, well, you don't, because I said it applies to some digital content. I said, you need to know about your website. I can show you right now your website isn't accessible. You need to do all your programs. And she's like, well, we use thousands, we use hundreds of them. And how are we going to teach our teachers and to train them? And then she kind of pushed it off into special education. And I was like, yeah, no, it's for everyone. How do you know a parent has, how do you know a parent doesn't have a disability? And what is a disability? What is it? Like, maybe I have one and I don't know. Maybe you have one. We don't, what qualifies, So, makes me angry. It's fine. So our digital accessibility includes the websites and digital documents, PDFs, newsletters that they send out, the communication, the emails, PowerPoints, pictures, the mobile apps, learning management systems, online documents, and then social media. They're all on social media, and I'm sure they don't know what the ALT is when they're looking at it. So, so the learning, so for the students from a digital accessibility side is platforms. So Canvas, Blackboard, Google Classroom, and any other course materials. My kids use Clever and My Ion and Schoology. That's another big one. And within the learning management systems, you're trying to make it accessible through keyboard navigation, ensuring that the text or your images have text alternative, proper heading structure, so the screen reader is reading it in the right order and the right emphasis, making sure everything's labeled properly, that your media is time-based. And then the online educational resources, digital textbooks, EPUBs, interactive simulations, educational videos, all the software in their apps, which is hundreds. And that's what she said to me. She's like, how do I ensure that? What do I do? I said, well, during your procurement time, you tell them, listen, we have to comply with Title II. Does your product have a VPAT?
This point, can I ask? a
Yeah,
question?
yeah.
So, person you were talking to,
Mhm.
she the head honcho of the school district?
She was the director of general education for curriculum. What do you think?
Clearly, she was not informed of all of this.
No.
In your practice of communicating with these people,
Mhm.
have you found out why is it that clearly the director of curriculum is expected to do the work,
Mhm.
but she hasn't been informed
Mhm.
by whoever
Right.
should be informing her?
Mhm.
Why do you think her boss didn't do it?
So I first went to the special education director because I thought that was the first step. And he said to me, oh, she takes of title. I was like, okay. So then I went to her and I told her this. And she's like, I was really confused of why we were meeting today. I didn't really understand clearly. And I said, if Title II, your digital items have to be, plus your physical items, need to be compliant. And she said, well, this really sounds like it's special education. So I think now she is going to go and tell the special education director, and then I hope the administration. Now, I talked to other people, other curriculum or special education. I emailed them. And maybe I wasn't clear in my first, because I thought maybe they knew. They clearly don't. And their response, I will review their emails back to me, but really their response was, oh, our special education co-op handles that.
I ask this question is because there appears to be, I mean, both of us work for a Ohio State University. So we're generally familiar with Title II requirements. But there's a vacuum as far as clarity from up there
Mhm.
and proper direction. I'm not expecting you to know this, but I'm just asking, since you go and talk to
Yeah.
these people, when these regulations and laws come out, don't the leadership get informed?
Well, so I live in Illinois, so we don't have like standards like Texas and Florida and all that. So I think that might be part of the situation. I think that I will ask her this. I think it's an excellent question. But she said, like, she really had no idea of what this actually meant. I think they believed the Title II funding, and like she said, we use it for professional development. And then another school says, oh, we get very limited funding. So I don't know if, and she says, it seems like you know a lot about this. And I was like, right. So what can I do? And I was like, well, I'll send you an email and stuff. And so maybe, to be fair, no, they'll never hear this. We're having like a superintendent switchover. One's retiring, one's coming in, but they've been in this school, they've been doing this forever. So I don't know. Maybe, I think people are just so I think people are overworked. And I think not just like, I think we're all overworked, and I think we've all just lost like focus of what we're trying to do, of like things, and we're just trying to get through day by day. And I think we have to sometimes stop and really realize what is it that
May
we
I
have to
ask
do.
who asked you to go talk to her?
I did. I just went to her.
Oh,
Yeah. No, because I do accessibility consultant, and I wanted to see what these people were doing. And so also as part of my stint on the PTA, we had this moment where I asked them if they were translating their communication in Spanish. And then I got called to the principal's office, but that was a whole separate. So, but they're like, why do we have to do that? And I was like, because 30% of your school is Hispanic and speaks Spanish. I don't know. Like, you should probably think ahead. My son's teacher, she writes a newsletter in English, Spanish, and Ukrainian. Because she knows we have these students that have now come, and so do you think people should, do you think public school, I don't know if they think it applies to K through 12. Because separately, I was speaking to someone who works for an ed tech company, and I was telling them about it, and that person said, well, it only applies to higher ed. And then I was like, so. But I haven't talked to, I really want to try and get into like the healthcare sector too, because I don't know what their thoughts are either, because um someone told me. Anyway, cool. All right, thanks, guys. All right. Maybe next year I'll come back with like a update. School websites, emails, we talked about this. Then for the parents, online forms, digital documents, email communication, social media, online payment systems, parent portals. And so then she asked me, well, how are these teachers supposed to do this? Does this require more training? And I was like, well, it falls to the teachers, well, maybe it falls to you. Maybe you should figure this out. But there's tools that they can use. I mean, nobody's gonna memorize WCAG, but they can check for accessibility for their websites. I also find interesting that in general, she was pushing it off on special education as an educator. Checking digital documents, Word, PowerPoint has a review check accessibility tab. You can use Adobe Pro and screen readers and PAC for PDFs. So when practice meets policy, so you want to identify, so this is where she was too. She said to me, well, where do I start? And so I told her, well, as you're procuring your new contracts, that's one place to start. So to make a plan, what is your low hanging fruit? Can they, and she put it off too. She said, well, we don't create the website. It's the company. So would it be the company that has to fix it? I was like, right, but they probably don't know either. It's your job to tell them. I said, don't pay them then if it's not accessible. So, just an ongoing process, to educate, train. And so what I told her was you want to be proactive versus reactive. You don't want to get caught up. And then her other statement to me was, well, how do I know if people have a disability? They should tell me. No, 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 no. So identify your focus, utilize tools, set a standard from what you think you want to do today. And then understand what to ask for. So she obviously doesn't understand what to ask for. I'm going to tell her what to ask for. I'm going to tell her and give her an email, template to send out to get them more on board, more aware. So establish clear policies and procedures, procurement stage. Having the teachers just be more cognizant of what they're sending out versus, emails or newsletters. I mean, I told her posting to Facebook and Instagram pages, that's right there. It tells you to add alt text to your images. It's one small step, and then you're adding you're adding a caption to it. I hope they didn't spotlight my story. Okay. So just some of those things, provide training and professional development. She showed me a bunch of professional development that they do. I offered her to train to come in and talk to the teachers about those things, but this would be a section, I think, for them to take advantage of. Implement technical standards and guidelines. I don't think they would really understand what it means. I think you need a number 8 is to be transparent and communicative. Bring on someone, an accessibility SME or someone, an advocate that's going to help you get to a point of accessibility. Ensure accessibility of purchase and development content, focus on key digital arts, websites, documents, multimedia, small things, literally small things that they can do. Provide accommodations and support. I don't know what, well, accommodations and support. So having been in the room too and seen students with needs, behavioral, academic, they need more teachers. I've got like 5 organizational changes that I'd like to just provide them guidance on. There's kids and there's a 5th grader, he doesn't even know how to read. And they're not, I mean, he's in a room with a bunch of other kids that some have behavioral problems, some actually have academic problems or special needs. It's, the education system sucks. It sucks. But they provide them like, to calm their bodies. I also do a preschool, I also teach in a preschool room. They do like a calming vest or a weighted vest, and some people you have a weighted blanket. Some people have the iPad tool to communicate. Some kids have sit at a desk off to the side just because it's more calming for them. Some teachers turn off their lights as a tool to do it. So, and then monitor and evaluate. I think a yearly thing would be fine. So these were the responses I got from 6 school districts. At this time, this is not something we need support with. However, I will be sure to save your contact information. And so what I said to them was, my email to them was, I talked to them about Title II and 2 requests. 1, is there anything I can do to help you? And 2, I'm presenting and I would like to share your story or your journey with me so I can share it with them on your Title II. That's what happened. This is what I got back. Thank you for your interest. This is something that we work on our local special education co-op. Thank you again for the interest. It's much appreciated. So then I also emailed our local special education co-op and they never responded. Probably because they don't know either. We typically use Title II funds for paraprofessional development. So this is who I talked to. This was her first email, but I kept coming after and I was like, well, can I just meet you? So we did. Thanks for reaching out. We utilize both the special education co-op, assistive technology specialists, and our in-district tech coordinators support this area and don't have needs, but I'll keep your information. Thanks for reaching out. We have not used Title II for assistive tech since we do not receive very much Title II money, and we are expecting the allocation to the diminish for the fiscal year 26 school year. So 6 districts.
So One Step Beyond sends you to schools?
Yes, I send myself. One Step Beyond is my own company.
Oh.
Yeah. I was laid off in July and then I've always had a company, but I just got an EIN to be a big girl. But yeah. So yeah, I do other things. So my current jobs, I consult for 2 organizations, Britannica Education and McGraw-Hill. And so I'm helping them with EPUB processes, remediation, metadata. and project management. And then Britannica, I'm working on their VPATs for all of their products because their schools are emailing them and they're telling them that they need VPATs, and I don't know if they had VPATs before this. But that's why I was brought on to help them with those things, because they weren't gonna sign, these organizations or these schools weren't gonna sign their, oh, I'm sorry. Oh. Weren't going to resign. So they had to get their stuff done. That teachers who don't have disabilities, we need to help them. Mine too. Yeah, right. There seems to be an assumption that teachers do not have disabilities. We need to keep them in mind too. In my experience with rural Texas communities, the K through 12 public schools don't have someone who actually reviews the application they utilize for accessibility. So far, they seem to believe that it doesn't apply to them because they're required by TEA. Just what I've found from both personal and professional experiences. I've also found that the push is towards special ed one-on-one help only for accommodations. Yeah. However, not all students with a disability fit the special education criteria. Yep. And the ultimate goal is to provide those students with disabilities the ability to be more independent, which will be required for them at the end. It seems like K-12 schools are referring to Title II of Every Student Succeeds Act, which is not the same as Title II of ADA. Thank you. Good information. So I was a little disappointed. I felt like maybe I just haven't asked the right people. And I live in the western suburbs of Chicago. So it's not like we're in a affluent area or the other end. So I think it's just about educating. I think people may not know, which I think is great. So yeah. So just some takeaways. I mean, for us, we all know why we're here, but understanding our responsibilities, conducting thorough evaluations, developing comprehensive plans, and implementing practical strategies. And our organizations, our municipalities, our educational institutions can just will go beyond and reach some accessibility goals. It also, I mean, I don't think she has a buy-in. I think it takes commitment to ensure that accessibility has to be some type of a priority. I'm going to keep at these schools. And so I followed up with all of them, sort of highlighting a little bit more about Title II, and nobody replied. So, but I think maybe if one school does it, then maybe the rest will. So, so that's it. Short and sweet. Sorry, guys. I just thought the ice cream truck comes in 5 minutes. Anyway, I'm on LinkedIn, Christine Foushi, Foushi, one step beyond my own company. But yeah.